The rain stung Aaron's face like 1,000 tiny needles, each drop a reminder of the world's indifference. At 12 years old, he clutched a tattered backpack, the only thing his parents hadn't ripped from him when they threw him out of their rural Ohio home for being gay. By nightfall, he was alone in a Cleveland park, shivering under a splintered bench, wondering if survival was even worth it. Aaron had always known he was different. Growing up in a small town where church sermons thundered with warnings of sin, he hid his truth behind a forced smile. But when his mother found a love letter he'd written to a boy in his class, a clumsy, heartfelt scrawl of feelings he barely understood, her face contorted with rage. "You're no son of mine," she spat. And his father, a man of few words but heavy fists, dragged him to the door. The slam of its shutting still echoed in his dreams. With nowhere to go, Aaron hitched a ride to the city, hoping its chaos might swallow his pain. Cleveland's parks became his refuge, though refuge was a generous word. He learned to sleep lightly, one eye open for danger, thieves, drunks, or worse. He scavenged food from dumpsters behind fast food joints, the humiliation burning hotter than hunger. Yet, even in those dark nights, Aaron clung to a spark of hope. He'd seen movies where lost souls found salvation, and though he didn't believe in miracles, he whispered to himself, "Someone will see me. Someone will care." By 16, Aaron had grown street smart, his boyish face hardened by survival. He wore thrift store clothes, jeans too big, a faded hoodie that smelled of someone else's life. His dark hair fell into his eyes, which still held a flicker of defiance. He spent days at the public library, devouring books on art and history, dreaming of a life where he could create something beautiful. It was there, in the library's warmth, that he first saw Ethan. Ethan was everything Aaron wasn't: polished, confident, with blonde hair that caught the light like a halo. He was maybe 20, dressed in a crisp button-down, his smile disarming as he asked Aaron if he could share the table. Aaron nodded, wary but intrigued. Ethan's presence felt like a crack in the armor Aaron had built. They talked about books, then dreams, and, for the first time in years, Aaron felt seen. Ethan didn't know Aaron's story, but his kindness, a gentle touch on the arm, a shared laugh, felt like a lifeline. Their meetings became a ritual. Ethan, a college student studying architecture, would bring coffee, and Aaron would pretend he wasn't starving. But Ethan noticed things, the way Aaron's hands shook, the hollows under his eyes. One day, he pressed a sandwich into Aaron's hands, saying, "You look like you need this more than me." Aaron wanted to refuse, pride warring with hunger, but he took it, mumbling thanks. Ethan's smile was soft, not pitying, and Aaron's heart ached with something he hadn't felt since he was 12, trust. Weeks turned into months, and Aaron began to open up. He told Ethan fragments of his past, never the full story, but enough. Ethan listened, his green eyes steady, never judging. One chilly autumn evening, as they walked through a park, Ethan stopped under a canopy of red and gold leaves. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice low. Aaron froze, the words cutting through years of isolation. For a moment, he wanted to believe it, but fear held him back. Trusting meant risking everything. That night, Aaron slept under a bridge, the memory of Ethan's words keeping him warmer than any blanket. He didn't know that his life was about to change forever or that someone else was watching him, someone with the power to rewrite his story. The city's pulse thrummed through Aaron's veins as he navigated its dangers. At 17, he was a ghost in Cleveland streets, slipping through crowds unseen, his dark eyes scanning for threats or opportunities. Ethan's kindness had become his anchor, but Aaron still guarded his heart, afraid of what hope might cost him. One winter morning, as snow dusted the park, Aaron spotted a man watching him from a sleek black car. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and a tailored coat that screamed wealth. Aaron's instincts screamed danger. He'd learned to distrust anyone who paid too much attention. But the man approached, his expression not predatory, but curious. "You're the kid who's always at the library," he said, voice smooth but warm. "I'm Julian Voss." Aaron tensed, ready to bolt. Julian Voss was a name he'd heard whispered in the city, a tech millionaire who'd built an empire from nothing. Why would someone like that notice him? Julian held up a hand, sensing his fear. "I'm not here to hurt you. I've seen you reading, sketching. You've got talent. And I think you deserve a chance." Aaron's mind raced. He'd heard stories of scams, of predators cloaked in generosity. But Julian's eyes held no malice, only a quiet intensity. "I run a foundation for kids like you," Julian continued. "Kids the world's thrown away. I want to offer you a place to stay, food, a shot at school. No strings." Aaron's laugh was bitter. "Nothing's free," Julian nodded. "True. The cost is you have to want it. You have to fight for it." The offer haunted Aaron. He spent days wrestling with it, his pride battling his desperation. Ethan, now a constant in his life, urged him to consider it. "What if it's real?" Ethan asked one night, their breath fogging in the cold as they sat on a park bench. Aaron looked at him, heart pounding. Ethan's faith in him was disarming. But it was the way Ethan's hand lingered on his that made Aaron's resolve crack. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll try." Julian's foundation was housed in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel, a world away from the parks Aaron knew. The program offered shelter, education, and mentorship to homeless youth, many of whom were LGBTQ+. Aaron was given a small room, clean clothes, and access to art classes. For the first time, he had a bed, not a bench. But trust didn't come easily. He kept waiting for the catch, for Julian to demand something in return. Julian, however, was patient. He saw something in Aaron, a fire that hadn't been extinguished by years of hardship. He introduced Aaron to mentors, artists who taught him to channel his pain into his sketches. Aaron's drawings, raw and vivid, captured the city's underbelly, faces of the forgotten, moments of fleeting hope. Julian framed one in his office, a portrait of a boy under a street lamp, and Aaron felt a flicker of pride. Ethan remained his constant, visiting when he could. Their connection deepened, though Aaron still held back, afraid of what love might mean. One evening, as they walked through the city, Ethan stopped him. "You're not that kid under the bridge anymore," he said, voice fierce. "You're allowed to want this. To want us." Aaron's throat tightened. He wanted to believe it, but the scars of his past whispered that nothing good lasted. Aaron's new life felt like a dream he didn't trust. At 18, he was enrolled in community college, his days filled with classes and his nights with sketches that poured out his soul. Julian's foundation gave him stability, but it was Ethan who gave him courage. Their relationship had grown into something unspoken but undeniable, a fragile thread Aaron both cherished and feared. Yet, the past wasn't done with him. One gray afternoon, as Aaron left an art class, he saw a familiar face across the street, his father. The man looked older. His broad shoulders stooped, but the hard set of his jaw was unmistakable. Aaron's heart lurched. He ducked into an alley, breath ragged. Memories of that night at 12 flooding back, the door slamming. His mother's screams. He hadn't seen them in 6 years, but the pain felt fresh. His father didn't follow, but the encounter shook Aaron. He withdrew, skipping classes, avoiding Ethan. Julian noticed, pulling him aside one day. "You can't outrun your past," Julian said, his voice gentle but firm. "But you can choose what it makes of you." Aaron wanted to believe him, but fear was a heavy chain. Ethan refused to let him retreat. He showed up at Aaron's dorm, his blonde hair damp from rain, his eyes blazing. "You don't get to shut me out," he said, stepping close. "I'm here, Aaron. I'm not going anywhere." The words broke something in Aaron. He let Ethan pull him into a hug. Their bodies pressed close, and for the first time, Aaron let himself cry for the boy he'd been, for the years stolen, for the love he was terrified to accept. Their first kiss was tentative, under the glow of a streetlight, rain soaking their clothes. It was messy, raw, and perfect. Aaron felt alive, like the city itself was holding its breath for them. But happiness was unfamiliar, and Aaron's instincts screamed to brace for loss. Trouble came in the form of a letter. Aaron's parents had tracked him down, claiming they wanted to reconcile. The words felt like a trap, but they stirred a longing Aaron thought he'd buried. Against Ethan's warnings, he agreed to meet them at a diner outside the city. Julian offered to go with him, but Aaron refused. He needed to face this alone. The diner was dim, smelling of coffee and grease. His parents sat stiffly, their faces lined with time and something like regret. His mother spoke first, her voice tight. "We made a mistake," she said. "We want you back." His father nodded, silent. Aaron's heart twisted. Part of him wanted to believe them, to reclaim the family he'd lost. But their words fell hollow, their eyes avoiding his. "You threw me out," Aaron said, voice steady despite the ache. "You don't get to decide I'm worth keeping now." He walked away, head high, but the rejection stung anew. Ethan was waiting outside, his presence a balm. "You did it," he whispered, pulling Aaron close. "You chose yourself." For the first time, Aaron believed he might be enough. Aaron's world began to shift. At 19, he was no longer the boy hiding under bridges. His art was gaining notice. His sketches, vivid with emotion, were featured in a local gallery, thanks to Julian's connections. Ethan stood by him, their love a quiet strength, though Aaron still wrestled with the fear that it could vanish. The gallery opening was a whirlwind. Aaron, in a borrowed blazer, felt out of place among the city's elite, their polished voices praising his work. His pieces, gritty portraits of street life, infused with hope, drew whispers of prodigy. Julian beamed, but Aaron's eyes kept finding Ethan, who looked effortlessly handsome in a tailored sweater, his smile grounding Aaron through the chaos. After the event, a critic approached Aaron with an offer, a scholarship to a prestigious art school in New York City. The opportunity was staggering, but it meant leaving Cleveland and Ethan. Aaron's heart sank. He and Ethan had built something real, but distance felt like a threat. That night, they sat on the roof of Aaron's dorm, the city sprawling below. "You have to go," Ethan said, his voice steady but pained. "This is your dream." Aaron shook his head, gripping Ethan's hand. "You're my dream too." The decision tore at him. Julian, ever the mentor, shared his own story over coffee one morning. He'd been disowned at 16 for being gay, clawing his way to success alone. "Love doesn't mean giving up your future," Julian said. "If it's real, it'll wait." Aaron listened, but the thought of leaving Ethan felt like abandoning the one person who'd seen him at his lowest. Days later, tragedy struck. Ethan was in a car accident, a drunk driver, a rainy night. He survived, but his leg was shattered, his architecture dreams thrown into question. Aaron stayed by his hospital bed, guilt gnawing at him. He'd been so focused on his own fears. He hadn't seen Ethan's struggles, his long hours, his stress. "I'm not going anywhere," Aaron whispered, holding Ethan's hand. For once, he meant it. Ethan's recovery was slow, and Aaron put the scholarship on hold. He took a job at a local art supply store, balancing work with classes and hospital visits. Their love grew fiercer in the face of hardship, but Aaron felt the weight of his choice. Was he sacrificing his future or building one? Julian watched, saying nothing, but his quiet support spoke volumes. One evening, as Ethan slept in the hospital, Aaron sketched him a portrait of resilience, love etched in every line. He realized then that his art, his heart, belonged to both Ethan and the dreams he was chasing. The path forward was unclear, but for the first time, Aaron felt ready to fight for it. Aaron's days became a blur of purpose and pain. At 20, he juggled his job, his art, and Ethan's recovery, each demanding a piece of him. Ethan was healing, his spirit unbroken despite the crutches. But Aaron saw the frustration in his eyes. Their love held strong, but the future loomed like a storm cloud. The art school scholarship was still on the table, extended by the critic who believed in Aaron's talent. New York City beckoned, a chance to study with masters, to show the world what a kid from the streets could do. But Ethan's physical therapy was in Cleveland, and moving wasn't an option yet. Aaron felt torn between his dreams and the man he loved. Every night, he sketched, pouring his conflict into charcoal and paper, creating pieces that ached with longing. Julian stepped in, sensing Aaron's turmoil. He offered to fund Ethan's relocation to New York if Aaron accepted the scholarship. "You're not choosing between love and ambition," Julian said. "You're building a life where both can exist." Aaron was floored. Julian's generosity seemed boundless, but it came with a weight. Accepting meant trusting that Ethan would agree, that their love could survive the upheaval. Aaron broached the idea with Ethan one crisp autumn evening, as they sat in a park, the same one where they'd first connected. Ethan's blonde hair glowed in the fading light, his eyes searching Aaron's face. "You can't stay here for me," Ethan said, voice thick. "I won't let you give up your future." Aaron's heart clenched. "It's not giving up if it's for us," he countered. They argued, voices rising, until Ethan pulled Aaron close, their foreheads touching. "We'll figure it out," Ethan whispered. Together, they moved to New York 6 months later. Julian's foundation covered Ethan's medical bills and secured them a small apartment in Brooklyn. Aaron started art school, his days filled with vibrant chaos, lectures, studios, and late-night critiques. His professors praised his raw talent, but Aaron felt the pressure to prove he belonged. Ethan, meanwhile, enrolled in online architecture courses, adapting to his new reality with a quiet strength that humbled Aaron. Their life wasn't perfect. Money was tight, and Ethan's recovery hit plateaus. But they built a rhythm, mornings tangled in bed, evenings cooking cheap meals, nights sketching or studying side by side. Aaron's art began to sell, small pieces at first, then larger ones. A gallery in Manhattan offered him a solo show, a dream he'd barely dared to imagine. Ethan was his biggest cheerleader, but Aaron saw the shadows in his eyes, the fear of being left behind. One night, as snow fell outside their window, Aaron showed Ethan a sketch, a portrait of them under that Cleveland streetlight, their first kiss immortalized. "This is us," Aaron said, voice breaking. "No matter what, this is home." Ethan's smile was everything, and Aaron knew they'd fight for this, no matter the cost. At 22, Aaron stood on the edge of a new life. His solo gallery show in Manhattan was a triumph. His art vivid, raw portraits of survival and love, drawing crowds and critics alike. Ethan stood beside him, his crutches gone, his smile radiant. They'd fought for this moment, through doubt and distance, and Aaron felt a pride that burned brighter than any spotlight. The show was more than a success, it was a declaration. Aaron's work told his story, a boy thrown out at 12, surviving parks and pain, finding love and purpose. Each piece was a chapter, from Cleveland's cold nights to New York's frenetic pulse. The final painting, a massive canvas of him and Ethan under a golden sky, drew gasps. It was their story, unapologetic and true. Julian attended, his silver hair catching the gallery lights. He pulled Aaron aside, his eyes warm. "You've done more than I ever hoped," he said. "You've given voice to kids like you." Aaron's throat tightened. Julian had been his savior, not just with money, but with belief. Aaron hugged him, a rare gesture, and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." The show brought opportunities, commissions, interviews, even a teaching gig at a community center for LGBTQ plus youth. Aaron poured himself into it, mentoring kids who reminded him of his younger self, scared, defiant, desperate for hope. He told them his story, not to inspire, but to show them they weren't alone. Ethan joined him sometimes, sharing his own journey, their love a quiet testament to resilience. But life wasn't a fairy tale. Aaron's parents reached out again, this time through a lawyer, claiming they wanted to make amends. Aaron refused to meet, but the letters stirred old wounds. Ethan held him through the nights when memories clawed at him, reminding Aaron that family wasn't blood, it was the people who stayed. Julian, Ethan, the kids at the center, they were his family now. One evening, as spring bloomed in Central Park, Aaron and Ethan walked hand in hand, the city alive around them. Aaron stopped, pulling Ethan close, their foreheads touching like that first night in Cleveland. I love you, Aaron said, the words no longer heavy with fear. Ethan's smile was soft, his green eyes bright. I love you too. Always. Aaron's journey wasn't over. There would be more battles, doubt, prejudice, the ghosts of his past. But he wasn't that boy under the bridge anymore. He was an artist, a partner, a mentor, a survivor. The world had tried to break him. But love, Ethan's, Julian's, his own, had rebuilt him. As they stood under the park's golden light, Aaron knew he'd found his place. Not just in the world, but in his own heart.